Hello and welcome back to the quiet part. I am here today with a member of HSA, which is
the Housestaff Association for the resident physicians of the University of Colorado.
Okay. So I'm trying to develop as much context as I'd like you guys to understand through our little conversation here. So HSA is in fact not a health savings account. I do apologize for this. So here's what I'm learning. You are a doctor. You don't have to give your name if you don't want to, but you're a doctor. You finished school. You do PhD.
I have a medical doctorate.
Medical doctorate. Right.
Masters of Health Sciences.
Holy cow. Okay. So what you guys have explained to me, and I'd heard about the concept of residency before. I knew that residency was your first couple of years of being a doctor.
That's right.
I'm a public school teacher, as everyone in the audience knows. When we're finishing up our 4 years, as opposed to however many you had, which is a lot, that's incredible for first off. But when we're finishing up our 4-year bachelor's degree to become public school teachers, the last year is called student teaching. And student teaching is when they physically put you in a school and you do unpaid labor. You pay tuition to not get paid to do unpaid labor for free. So when you guys were describing some of what the experience of residency is like, it made me think a lot about student teaching.
Well, I think there's a lot of parallels between what you're talking about, where you're a highly trained person who's shown a lot of dedication towards building a craft, and the system then essentially exploits your goodwill, where you're trying to do right by your students, or in my case, my patients, by learning your craft as best as you possibly can. For young doctors, this means pursuing residency training in the subspecialty of your choosing. For example, I'm an OBGYN doctor, and so in the period of residency training, I'm working as hard as I possibly can to acquire the skill set that will let me be an excellent physician for my patients. However, this also means that I work for essentially minimum wage, up to 28 hours at a time, about 80 hours every single week.
Oh my God.
And I am shamed if I try to take a sick day.
We do have that parallel. Not the 80 hours though. That's just inappropriate worker conditions, right?
Right.
So HSA again is
it's the Housestaff Association, which represents the residents and fellows of the University of Colorado. So the fellow trainee doctors like me, and it tries its best to bargain for fair working conditions for us with the graduate medical education body of the University.
You guys are kind of like a labor organization that is pre-union, but in the process of fully unionized.
So the Housestaff Association has represented us informally for about 30 years.
Okay, I've heard of this sort of thing.
So now that laws have changed in Colorado, we're seeking recognition as a formal union. And in that process, we're receiving a lot of pushback from the University of Colorado.
So to get full context on this, House staff are people who have finished their degrees. Did most of you finish your degrees through the University of Colorado?
We really come from all over the country.
Okay. So is the situation then that the University of Colorado helps pair graduates with their first job through this residency sort of program, or is it kind of like a contract?
Right. So when a young doctor finishes medical school, you enter a process called the match, where you interview and apply for a residency position at a number of different institutions. In my case, I applied to 80 institutions.
Oh my God.
You interview at a number of them, and then you rank your top choices for residency training. They rank their candidates, and then you sign a contract before you even know where you'll be assigned, saying, I will work for the next 4, 6, 7 years, however long your program.
You could have finished your degree to get a medical license. Or you could finish your education in like a random state like Ohio, but you want to work in Colorado. And the University of Colorado, even though you weren't a student, is the one that's making these decisions to help match you with a first job as a resident. Is that what's going on?
Essentially. So there are residency programs throughout the country, and you'll sign this contract saying, I will go to whichever residency program I am assigned to. And for all of us here, it happens to be the University of Colorado,
so
whether that's
UC
your first or fifth
is kind
choice.
of the academic institution that is facilitating the residency program.
That's correct.
Okay. And what they're doing is making you work 28-hour shifts on occasion, 80 hours a week. Oh my God. What do you mean once a week? Okay. So that's horrible. This is echoing student teaching to a terrifying degree for me. We do a matching system as well.
Okay.
Where you rank what schools you want to do your first year of teaching at. And then in our case, we were fully unpaid, but you being paid minimum wage with a medical degree is completely unacceptable, of course. So that leads into the conversation of what are the particular demands or policies that your organization is advocating for?
So things we're advocating for are, one, recognition as a formal union to give us better power
Protections.
to advocate for our members. We're looking for things like paying for our medical licensing exams, because on top of the amount that we work and the amount that we get paid, we're expected to pay thousands of dollars for medical licensing exams on top of that. We're looking for better working conditions and hours. We're looking for a ride share system for us to be able to get safely home after working very long shifts.
That's a very good idea.
We're looking for protections for our international resident physicians who are facing a lot of uncertainty right now. And we're also looking for recognition as staff of the university, because right now we're essentially an undefined role with very limited protection.
To some degree, as I've been talking with you, that's what I've been kind of trying to make sense of, because this sounds like it's very intersectional in a way that is, rather than beneficial, it's very unclear. Because you guys kind of sound like you're students of the University of Colorado. You also sound like full employees of the hospital.
Right.
And yet you're not being paid like either of those things.
That's correct.
So what I imagine is happening, and tell me if this is not a good characterization, it sounds like to some degree the university is taking advantage of this uncertainty and using this to kind of get you guys to work for cheaper than you should, and you know, facilitate these relationships with these hospitals, but they're using you as the bargaining chip, and the fact that you're cheap labor. Is kind of that what's going on?
That's really close to what's going on. That's pretty much hitting the nail on the head. For example, there was a residency training program in the Southwest that closed down a few years ago and had to hire 3 PAs, essentially physician assistants, for each resident spot, because that's the amount of work that one resident phisian does, is equivalent to 3.
Which allows you to practically calculate how much money is being taken from you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's horrible. In some ways, as a teacher and a public school teacher, I understand how our system works a little bit. But the fact that all of you are significantly more qualified by virtue of your discipline, you take many more years to get your qualifications. You guys have people's lives more directly in your hands than a teacher typically would, of course. The idea that this just sounds terrible. This just really sounds unfair. This sounds very unfair to me.
Yeah.
That you guys are completely qualified, equally as many of your peers, and yet you're not being paid fairly or reasonably. The next question I kind of have for you is, how can people support your organization, whether that be just your personal opinion informally, or maybe things the organization is asking of people to help support you all?
Yeah, we would love people to sign a community petition.
Okay, there's a petition.
There's a petition.
Okay.
That you support the Housestaff Association or the residents and fellows of the University of Colorado in our efforts to unionize, and you're asking University of Colorado to stop its current union busting practices.
Okay. So regarding union busting, which is something I am unfortunately familiar with as someone who was raised in the Rust Belt, where the steel unions are prolific and they form the foundation of middle-class families getting by at all, union busting is way too legal in the country in general, but it's unusually legal in Colorado. What are some of the troubles you guys have experienced in this process of unionizing? What union busting in different ways do you think you've faced?
The main thing we've faced is that for the last 10 plus years, the Housestaff Association has represented informally the residents and fellows of the University of Colorado and has deducted dues in order to do so in a voluntary system, where when people are opted into this system, we subtract about $20 a month from people's paychecks, which can be done automatically. And after announcing that we would like to form a formal union, the university graduate medical education body forbid us from deducting our dues from people's paychecks, essentially cutting off our funding source as a union. And
that's just sabotage.
A really effective way to stop
that
us
does sound like good sabotage. That is terrible.
So now we're going around to extremely busy resident physicians, asking them to sign up and give us their bank account information to re-opt into something that they were previously already opted into. And most people don't carry that information around with them.
Good point. Right. So being able to use the existing digital infrastructure to get that set up was huge, and they've consciously sabotaged the basis of your organization's existence. Right. If there are no basic dues or contributions, people cannot work uncompensated forever. Which ironically mirrors some of what we're talking about, right? This idea of like people cannot work poorly compensated forever. The union needs to be supported. And if they get in the way of your ability to be funded, I mean, how will you survive, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, it was great talking with you. Is there anything else you'd like to say or what you'd like to say out?
The last thing I'd like to say is that the whole reason behind this is not just about me asking for better working conditions or pay for myself, but it has so much to do with my ability to care for my patients.
Mm-hmm.
When I am at the 20th hour of a shift, asking me to perform surgery on a mother and child is not a reasonable thing or safe or beneficial to my patients. And so I think we really need to rethink this system for both our resident physicians, but most importantly for the safety of our patients.
It's a common, you've probably heard of the concept in your education at some point of the old Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yeah.
And while that has some issues with it towards the tippy top, one thing all of us can agree on is that if people haven't slept, if they can't afford groceries, right, if they can't cover their rent, they're not going to be efficacious at their job in the same way. So a rising tide lifts all ships, right? If we take care of teachers, we take care of students. If we take care of doctors, we take care of patients.
Exactly.
So take care of the people doing the important work that we need, and everything will be better.
I think that was really well said.
Sure. I appreciate you so much for talking with me. That was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.